Imagine earning more money than you did a year ago, seeing a higher number hit your account each month, and yet noticing that your financial position feels almost unchanged, as if progress is happening on paper, but not in reality. And over time, this creates a quiet confusion where increased income does not translate into increased stability. And the reason often lies in a pattern that is rarely questioned because it feels natural, even justified. This is the dynamic where earning more does not necessarily make you wealthier, and understanding it requires looking beyond income itself and into the system that surrounds it. At the surface level, income appears to be the primary driver of financial progress because it determines how much money flows into your life. But income alone does not define outcomes, since what matters is not just how much comes in, but how that inflow interacts with spending patterns, expectations, and behavioral responses. When income increases, there is often a parallel adjustment in lifestyle, not always consciously, but gradually, where small upgrades begin to accumulate. Slightly better choices, more convenience, improved comfort. And over time, these adjustments form a new baseline that absorbs the additional income almost entirely. This process is known as lifestyle inflation, but its mechanics are more subtle than simply spending more because it is driven by perception rather than necessity, where previous standards begin to feel insufficient, and what once felt optional slowly becomes normal. The psychological shift here is important because it changes how spending decisions are evaluated, turning upgrades into perceived needs, and reducing the likelihood that additional income will be preserved or invested. The mathematics behind this is straightforward but powerful, because if expenses rise in proportion to income, the gap between what is earned and what is kept does not expand. And without that gap, there is little room for wealth to accumulate. Even small percentage increases in spending can neutralize income growth over time, especially when they are consistent. And this creates a situation where higher earnings lead to higher obligations rather than increased flexibility. From a behavioral perspective, this pattern is reinforced by reward systems, where increased income justifies increased consumption, creating a feedback loop that feels positive in the short term but limits long-term progress. The brain associates higher earnings with permission to upgrade, and without deliberate constraints, this association becomes automatic, making it difficult to maintain previous spending levels even when doing so would be beneficial. In broader economic systems, this dynamic is not accidental, because many industries are structured around capturing incremental income increases, offering products and services that scale with what people earn, ensuring that as income rises, opportunities to spend expand alongside it. This creates an environment where maintaining the same financial position despite earning more is not only possible, but common. Over time, the difference between income growth and wealth growth becomes more apparent, as individuals who allow expenses to scale with earnings remain dependent on continuous income, while those who maintain a gap between earning and spending begin to accumulate assets that provide stability and optionality. This gap does not need to be extreme, but it must exist consistently for wealth to form. The identity shift involved in this process is subtle, because it requires moving from viewing income as a signal to upgrade, to viewing it as an opportunity to increase control over future outcomes. This shift changes the purpose of money from supporting immediate comfort to building long-term positioning, which can feel counterintuitive in a culture that emphasizes visible progress through consumption. By the time this pattern becomes clear, it often appears as if some individuals are simply better with money, when in reality, the difference lies in how income changes are managed, not in the size of the income itself. Understanding this dynamic does not require extreme discipline or sacrifice, but it does require awareness of how easily increased earnings can be absorbed by expanding expectations, and how maintaining even a small gap between income and spending can alter financial trajectories over time. If income is the input, then behavior is the system that processes it. And wealth is the output that emerges from that system, which means that without changing the system, increasing the input alone will not necessarily change the result. And this is why earning more, by itself, does not always make someone wealthier.